The Russian astronaut. I'm going to be big Russian hero. I see.
A futuristic, like Aladdin.
Heroin-induced fever dream of a sport.
I'm not a therapist, but I'd say it's probably a bad way to cope.
Oh, that's Edward Norton.
Hello and welcome to Movie Smash!
Hello and welcome to Movie Smash, the podcast that looks at comic book movies outside the MCU that you may or may not remember. If you're the type of person who enjoys talking about hidden gems or just like to tear old movies apart, this is the place for you. And with that, let's get started. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Roberts. I'm the founder of Off Panel Creations. With me today, I have Fergel Amayo.
I am Fergel Amayo, founder and owner of Gotham Knight Comics, where we get our nerd on. And of course, I am here to see who has courage to battle Gruishka.
And our guest hosts today are from the show Dr. P.F. Jeremiah and his Infernal roommate. First with us, David Patterson.
Yep, hello. How we doing, everyone?
And Jeremy Ellis.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jeremy. You can call me Jer.
So today's movie is 2019's Alita Battle Angel, starring Rosa Salazar, Christoph Waltz, and Jennifer Connelly, directed by Robert Rodriguez and written by James Cameron.
And I'm just an insignificant girl.
Yeah, that's what they want you to think.
I'm not your daughter. I don't know what I am.
I do. You have the most advanced weapon ever. But that's just a shell. It's not bad or good. That part's up to you.
I do not stand by in the presence of evil.
She's threatening the natural order of things.
Dave, you chose this. Why'd you choose it?
You know, I was looking on your movie list and I noticed you guys haven't covered an anime. Let's face it, Dragon Ball's not great. Netflix started doing some ones and no one likes Cowboy Bebop. Yu Yu Hakusho's nah. I was like, let's cover a good one. Let's do Alita Battle Angel. That's
right. This would be our first movie whose source material is a manga. How familiar are you guys with the character of Alita?
So I'm going to say flat out, this is one of the few books I hadn't read. I'm not a huge, I like some manga. I do like Robotech being the all-time king of all manga, but I went back and bought a couple of these books just to check them out because I'm not as familiar with this character, which is kind of mind-blowing because I'm familiar with every character, but wow. It was pretty damn good.
So, you know, what I got to say is, I love anime. I love manga. I haven't really checked too much of this one out, but you know what? I watched it and I fell in love with this one. I don't know the story too well, but I can tell you that this one, I could just tell by watching the movie that it flowed a lot better than a lot of the other animated, live action adaptations. So I enjoyed this one overall over any other anime adaptation. So
I'm going to be completely honest. I hope your audience doesn't hate me or, find out where I am and do horrible things.
You're in Albany.
I wasn't really a big fan of anime or manga. I never really got into that when I was younger. And as an adult, I kind of partake into anime and manga hanging out with Dave because he's introduced me to some stuff. I'm very unknown with Alita Battle Angel. So my history with this movie is basically this movie came out right around the same time as when Captain Marvel came out. And I know a lot of people were kind of using these two movies as kind of like basic examples of what's a good representation for strong female character type and what's a bad representation for strong female character types.
Alita Battle Angel is the best one, hands down.
That's what a lot of people were saying, is that Alita Battle Angel is the better female representation compared to the Captain Marvel movie. But unfortunately, the Captain Marvel movie made way more money than Alita Battle Angel.
I think that's because it had the mouse house behind it. That would be my initial thought there.
Yeah, when you have the mouse backing you, it's pretty much just all 100%.
My introduction to this character was I was not a manga reader growing up. But I did know some 90s anime. Battle Angel Alita was 90s anime. Things like Ninja Scroll, Robotech, Cowboy Bebop, those kinds of things came out at the time. Ghost in the Shell. So I knew it from that, but I did not know it. I didn't know the manga, had never read it, so I was unfamiliar with the actual true story, just the 1 hour anime movie that came out of it. So do you guys remember the first time you saw this movie?
acutely. February 14th of 2019, an open night. Here's why I remember that. 1 month later, the entire world fell apart.
Unknown virus of unspecified locations.
I saw it on Blu-ray. I never saw this thing in the theater. I wish I had, but yeah, never saw this thing in the theater when it first came out. Do you remember what your first initial thoughts were after seeing it before going into this reviewing of it?
I remember when I went and first saw this. So when I went and saw this, it was me and my wife went because she loves anime too. So basically, we both went in not knowing what this movie was about, what the series was about. But, we came out of this loving this because it was something that, it looked like it was the first anime to live action adaptation that, actually was pretty good. I've never seen anything else that, anyone put this amount of effort into where they focus on a good storytelling and didn't completely kibosh the original source material. And my wife, who's not here, her and I both got shocked when she saw her favorite what I would like to call her guilty pleasure actor of Jai Courtney just having his cameo in there. But
I remember, that I thought, I didn't know it was anime because I was wondering why her eyes were so big, again, because I wasn't familiar with the source material. But, Robert Rodriguez is one of my favorite directors, right? I mean, Machete. I mean, let's go on. I mean, the guy, Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. James Cameron.
Spy Kids?
Yeah.
Spy Kids.
Okay, yeah.
Spy Kids.
Spy Kids. Just stop right there. Yes, he just did Spy Kids, which is amazing. That's our man. So I thought the movie was phenomenal. The martial arts were ridiculous. That blew me away. I was completely blown away. The Panzer Kunz. I wanted to learn more about and the Panzer Kunz and, the whole, who was Nova? What was the whole Zalem thing? What was the war? I really wanted to learn about that. So, yeah, good movie.
So basically, my first interaction with watching this movie was preparing for this show. I unfortunately, now being that we do a movie review podcast ourselves, I'm basically now in that focus zone of watching this as a film reviewer and not watching this as just a casual movie-going fan who just wants to watch enjoyable movies. But actually, as I started watching it, I'm like, oh, this is really good, and this is really enjoyable and fun. Special effects were really amazing, and just compared to what we're going to see in the near-distant future of how awful CGI has gotten nowadays, it's kind of refreshing to actually see a movie put a little care and passion into their special effects. And being the fact that I've never really watched any anime or manga, being that I could just kind of come in anime virgin on this and have an enjoyable, fun time and kind of get this story and get all this world around it. It was quite an enjoyable watch.
It's funny you say that. That's actually what my initial experience was like too. It's a fun watch. It was very heavy on the CGI. It was very heavy on just the special effects. But at the end of the day, it just was a overall fun movie. We'll get more into the sort of current takes on it. And I do want to spend some time on Alita's eyes, Fergel, because I know you got a problem with that.
They're like this big. I would be so freaked out. I'm just like, okay, what is your emotion that you're displaying to me now? This is where we're at.
We'll get more to that in a little bit. So before we jump into the movie, Fergel, do you have any sort of history about this book for us?
Yes. So again, Japanese manga. Wasn't 100% familiar with it, but I know that the gentleman is Yukito Kishiro, and it was originally published in Shishisa's Business Jump magazine from 1990 and 1995. What I do know is they changed the name of a few things, like it wasn't Iron City, it was a scrapyard. There were 19 tombs in the whole storyline. There were a lot going on. It actually was one of the best-selling mangas at the time. It picked up over 800,000 copies sold, ran for a bit, had a 2-part movie in the US in anime version, a cartoon, and then they jumped it into this. And really what got it made was James Cameron. I mean, James Cameron, this was his baby. Ultimately, as I understand it, this was his movie that he wanted to, that's why he wrote it, not directed it.
He did buy the rights for this, I think it was 20 years ago. So if this is your first time joining us, just a quick heads up. We're about to discuss the plot of this movie, and we're going to discuss some elements that might be considered spoilers, so consider yourself warned. If you have not watched this, I do recommend go seeing it before coming back here and listening to us, or if you don't want to listen, go watch a movie, just listen to us ruin the whole thing for you.
If you like to live on the wild side and not be afraid, keep on listening.
So this movie takes place in 2563, 300 years after what they kept referring to as the Fall. It starts off with Dr. Ido. He finds a female cyborg in a junkyard, brings it back to his home, and he repairs her and brings her back to life. Later on, we're introduced to a young character named Hugo, who then becomes sort of love interest of the character. And as Alita, so named after the daughter of Io, starts rediscovering this world, and we are seeing this world through her eyes. She learns about Motorball, what that's about, about a tournament for that. She learns that Dr. Ido is actually a secret warrior hunter, which is a terrible name, or another word for it, bounty hunter. And as she's going through this world, she's starting to make enemies of those that are in power. And eventually she learns what her true history is and where she originally comes from. And through Hugo, gets a desire to go to the floating city of Zalem. This movie has a lot of characters. Besides Alita, what was one of your favorite characters from this movie?
I'll tell you who was one of the useless characters, Hugo. That was a useless dude. I'm just going to say that right now. That was a useless dude. I mean, I don't know. I think the African-American guy who was in that was better off than Hugo. I think he should have been the boyfriend. That's just my thought. But Gruishka was cool. He was really cool. Zapan, I like Ed Skrein. I don't know. I mean, he's a good actor, especially from the Deadpool movies. Great trailer today. But I thought he did Zapan real well.
Let's talk about Dr. Ito for a minute. Picks up this girl from the scrapyard. He's trying to find a way to cope with his daughter, being deceased. What does he do? He takes this, girl that fell from the sky and literally rebuilt her up as a cyborg. And basically, he calls this his daughter. Here's my question though. Is this, a mentally safe way to try to, cope with your daughter's situation?
Well, in the comics, it's actually Alita. Ito names Alita after his cat. Just a fun fact in case you guys didn't know that. It was actually after his cat. That's in the comics.
I did not know that. Then again, I never read the manga.
I'm not a therapist, but I'd say it's probably a bad way to cope with the death of his daughter. And I think his wife even says that at one point. She's like, you were supposed to have gotten rid of that body years ago.
It just kind of makes me think of Megan when the aunt was basically making Megan to kind of be the makeshift fill-in parent, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of helping in the moment. It's might be helping you cope with this as of right now, but like there might be longer lasting ramifications and mental effects that come down 20, 30 years down the road when you're not dealing with this in a more proper and healthy way is kind of the way I looked at that.
I say, I don't think there's too many therapists in Iron City.
Well, not ones that don't get paid in oranges.
Yeah, old chocolate,
I mean, to be fair, though, being paid in oranges and chocolate would actually be nice.
Well, you brought up, I want to circle back to that chocolate in a second, but before we do, you brought up Hugo Fergel. Hugo is actually a bad dude in that movie. He's not a good character. I mean, yes, he's sort of the partial love interest, but everything he's doing is in pursuit to get to the flying city.
As everyone does in that city.
Well, yeah, but he even sort of takes on Alita's sort of love interest for that purpose. I don't think he actually had true feelings for her whatsoever until the very, very end when, he falls off that giant cable and dies.
I think he was starting to have real interest when she gave up the heart. I think the heart is because it freaked him out. Like, as a dude, if you're sitting there talking to a girl and she pulls her chest open and gives you her super amazing metal heart, you're either going to do one of two things, be like, yay, or be like, whoa, this might be moving slightly too fast. And so I think that's where he was probably like, oh my God, this is a really nice person.
Well, I think the funnier part with that is that Mahershala Ali's character Vector was trying to coax Hugo to get the heart from Alita. You were thinking in your head as the audience that this is going to take something very difficult and drastic and it's going to take time and effort to try and pry this from her. But she was just basically like, here you go. And Hugo kind of had that shocked look of like, oh, wow, this was really easy. And now I kind of feel guilty about trying to take this heart for my own personal petty gains. And it's just like, I think it was just in that moment where he just kind of felt like true guilt.
But here's my question for you guys. As a film reviewer, though, do you think that Hugo is redeemable for this?
Oh, 100%. I just think he's a useless character. The problem is, that was the one, if you look at the robot effects on him, that was the one CGI that they spent no time on. There was even the robot arm at the beginning where the guy's like, here's your oranges. They spent more time on that than they did Hugo's whole body.
That's the point, though. Hugo's body was a scrapper. It was supposed to be a junky body that they got last minute for him. It was not meant to be anything cool.
But here's my thing, though. I disagree with you. Hugo was a necessary character. I mean, Alita needed someone besides the doctor to kind of, help her learn life. I mean, you got a girl with complete amnesia, and she needs someone to socialize with besides a grieving doctor who's using her just to kind of cope with his own issues. So I'm not saying that he's justifiable for what he did for things, but at the same time, she needed someone to talk to besides, her struggling dad person right here.
It humanized her.
Yeah.
It humanized her. I could feel you on
that. I feel like Hugo basically was really mostly needed in this story for the fact of, well, we need to have something of a love interest for Alita to have. So like Hugo's character really just kind of felt more like a ends justifying the needs to kind of help out with this story. And like it did help out in the short term for this movie. But like Hugo's character just kind of felt more stereotypical and tropey for kind of a sci-fi love story.
Yeah. Back to the chocolate real fast. On the DVD for this movie, there is a 10-minute video by Rodriguez on how he makes the chocolate. Just as a little side note for you.
Oh,
yeah. There's a whole 10-minute video. It said 10 minutes cooking with Rodriguez, and he demonstrates in his own kitchen how he makes the chocolate. He uses tequila, by the way, just so you know, 50% milk chocolate and dark chocolate.
Ooh,
and he makes those molds, and he showed how he did it. And and during the whole time, he's throwing shade at commercial chocolate about how they're terrible and they're worthless.
This is a guy who did make Big Apple cigarettes and all kinds of unique things in his movies. Every product placement from Tarantino and Rodriguez is all organically placed. They don't allow like regular stuff in their movies, in case you know that. Those two guys, because Tarantino and Rodriguez kind of Tarantino gave Rodriguez kind of a start in some of the things he was doing. They real things in all their stuff. They just don't work with the commercialization stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing, too, because how many times do you go to a movie, you see McDonald's, Coke, or something,
Watch any Michael Bay movie or Adam Sandler movie, and you get 12 product placements in the span of in a scene.
Oh, yeah. What was it? The Transformers movie had the giant beer?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's the Mountain Dew machine. It was the Mountain Dew machine that went crazy on the girls. Started flipping around, shooting bombs out of his hands. And then the Nokia phone that was gone crazy.
And the PlayStation that was strangling a girl.
Yes.
How'd you guys feel about Vector as a villain?
Again, I haven't read the comics, but, just basing it off this, feel like he wasn't strong enough of a villain. Like, very behind the scenes, and then you get to the final moment with him, and it's just like I forgot the doctor's name, but basically the guy from up in the high city, he just kind of took over the guy's mind, just gave a little threatening like speech, and then you're done. So it's like he served a purpose as like the figurehead for a villain, but did he really have a big part? No. And it's kind of sad that you didn't get to have that interaction.
It was wasted. I agree with you, my friend. It was wasted. I was actually going to say the two most wasted characters in that movie that could have been something was Edward Norton and Mashallah Ali. Both of those two guys have the power and weight to bring great performances behind them. And if you think about like Jack Nicholson and even we talked about Lex Luthor. Gene Hackman, all the greats, right? Oswald Cobblepot, Danny DeVito. When you get to play even Frank Langella, when you get to play a bad guy, play it up, man. That's your purpose. Bad guys are meant to be bad. And I just think he played it way too cool, and Ed Norton was just like not like, it was so esoteric. I'm Nova. Here's my eyes. They're blue.
So I have to disagree with you about the Ed Norton role. Ed Norton, I think, for an anime villain, was an anime villain. All anime always have the guy behind the guy, and he's always some guy far away who never talks, who has round glasses. And that's exactly who Ed Norton was. And he was not billed in the movie. He was a surprise actor in it. He wasn't top billed in it. He wasn't the casting call for it. So it was meant to be a surprise, like, oh my God, the big bad's Ed Norton.
But here's my thing, though. Ed Norton, there was obviously supposed to be a sequel to this, and Ed Norton was supposed to be in it, and they just kind of did his cameo just to, give him, the little show appearance of what to expect. So going back to Vector, my thing is, what if you got a different actor and you gave him a few more lines, maybe a fight scene or two, just something like, quick. That way, give him a little bit of a bigger role in this. I'm not saying you have to go crazy, but, if they were to just put an extra 2 minutes of, scene for him in there, probably would have been enough.
My whole thought with Vector, Mahershala Ali's character, was like, I kind of look at him as like the straight man villain, where like he's kind of he is a villain. He's not like over the top. He plays it very calm and sophisticated, and like he makes a perfectly good number two for the vessel for Ed Norton's character Nova. And like Dave was saying earlier, it's kind of like once he actually was in a situation where he actually had to defend himself, he just kind of cowered. Like he just kind of cowered away and like, oh no, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Like that whole tough guy, cool, calm swagger kind of melted away when Alita was getting ready to kill him. So like, I think he did an okay job as the villain, as like your number two villain. Like, yes, Ed Norton was basically is your bigger baddie in this movie and was set up at the end to, hey, I'm the actual real threat to this movie and you don't know anything about what I'm capable of doing.
Yeah, I kind of think he was a little bit wasted in the sense of villains are always sort of the key to a good, successful movie, right? And I think if they had set him up a little bit more, or we get a little more motivation behind him, or how he got into this role to be, because he essentially has sold his soul for being the ruler of hell versus being a slave in heaven, right?
He used almost that exact phrase.
Yeah, so how did he get into this position? I just want to know that so I can better understand why he's willing to make these sacrifices, because what he offers people is a free pass to go to whatever the name of the city is up there, the Z city.
Zalem.
Yeah.
And the free passes put your brain in a jar and send you up.
Well, that would be Dr. Sharin, and the hands, and the heart. I just saw this like 3 hours ago.
It was funny when I saw that scene and you just see Dr. Sala's eyes and brain and hands in the jar. I was just like, oh, so that means no Jennifer Connelly in the sequel?
Nope. Unless she comes back as a cyborg, maybe. This movie covers a lot of ground scene-wise. What scene stuck out to you guys?
No, I was just going to say the bar fight was one of the coolest scenes. I think it really demonstrated who Alita is. Like, you saw it in the Hunter Warrior, the first showdown, which, interestingly, that girl who, like, you only saw her head, she was in, it's going to kill me. I'm going to come up with it. It's the Vin Diesel movie where he plays the rebuilt soldier. I cannot think of it. He's the rebuilt soldier, and she plays one of the people in there. She's also in Underground 6 with Ryan Reynolds. So she plays in that. She's the doctor in that movie. But I thought that bar scene where she does the kicks with the bottles and the whole thing, I thought that was dope.
Well, I mean, she's also got that famous quote too. I do not stand by in the presence of evil. That was one of my favorite quotes from the movie, obviously. So
I will admit that bar scene was really awesome. There was that one moment when they slow-moed it down and she's kicking the 2 beer bottles, and you can clearly tell that this was a CGI'd scene. It was kind of a little off-putting, but then after that, when you just get into Alita just taking names and kicking ass of all these Hunter Warriors, it was really awesome. The whole, when we're talking about the Hunter Warrior scene, is that when we find out that Dr. Ito was a Hunter Warrior?
Yes.
So my whole, that was an enjoyable scene. Like, I liked it for the fact of, Dr. Ito has more of a nefarious side to him. I'm not going to lie, his weapon of choice seemed a little kind of impractical, of a rocket-powered pickaxe. But then again, we are talking about a weaponry in a science fiction anime movie, so kind of over the top and impractical kind of go hand in hand.
It's that or a giant sword.
With a flame on it.
Trust me, from someone who's played all the Kingdom Hearts games, seeing impractical weapons is something I'm used to. The motorball scene I did like too. It is a very interesting sport to watch because it's basically it's like roller derby, NASCAR, boxing, and mixed martial arts all mixed into one heroin-induced fever dream of a sport.
But here's my thing, though. Granted, I know it's in the manga probably, but is it really necessary for a movie like this where you're already introducing all of these elements? Was Motorball too much at that point is my question.
I was going to bring this up later on, but it does really feel like two storylines smashed together. You've got the Hunter Warrior storyline, you've got the Motorball storyline. And the reason why we feel that way is because James Cameron actually liked both those stories from the original manga, and he thought he might only have one chance at this. So he jammed both those lines in there and had them running parallel at the same time. They kind of intersect a little bit, but that's kind of why you feel like it's two movies in one.
I felt like it was just too much at that point. Maybe this should have become a TV series at that point.
Well, they're making the sequel. I don't know if you guys know this, but Alita Battle Angel 2 has been greenlit. I think we're going to get, and which is going to be interesting because how is Rosa Salazar going to look? It's been years since that movie came out. So how are they going to take that next level and see what she looks like and where she's going? Because it's supposed to be the kind of the second part of that story when she does get to Zalem, when she does face the man behind the man. So, but yeah, no, just that motorball scene was a lot, but I think it also shows how strong Alita is.
I'm just going to say with the time passage, the de-aging technology is pretty much amazing. And just look at Michael Douglas in the Ant-Man movies is a good example of that. I know that's usually kind of an issue when you're taking source material from mangas or TV shows where you have 6 books or you have hundreds of episodes and you're trying to cram in all this storyline and all this plot into like 1 2-hour long movie, and like it's just kind of that struggle of how much do I put in, what do I leave out, like if I leave this out, is this gonna ruin anything for a possible sequel if this doesn't become successful? So like there is that weird struggle when you have source material that has like so much, and how much do you put in and how much do you leave out is that real struggle for making it into a movie.
I mean, look at Dark Tower. Yeah, 13 books that was put into one movie.
Or just look at M. Night Shyamalan's tragic mistake of The Last Airbender when he tried to...
Do not talk about that movie. That is, we pretend it doesn't exist. No, it don't exist. Stop it.
But I mean,
Stop it, Jeremy.
Cameron bought the rights for this movie a long time ago. It's been sort of his dream project, and he got distracted with the Avatar movies, and not different Avatar, obviously, Avatar movies, and that's why he decided to hand this off to Rodriguez. He handed Rodriguez 600 pages of notes and said, turn this into a movie. I did want to talk a little bit about Iron City. How'd you guys feel about the look of the actual city itself?
Kind of a hodgepodge, really, like a lot of different things going into one. You had I thought they did a good job showing off how it connected to Zalem. You know, the far shot when they're going to the Badlands, and you can kind of see how Zalem is connected, how the whole interconnection, how that was the last city staying at. She was actually on one of those poles that got ripped down. Like she was on that pole back when the 300-year-ago battle. So I thought overall it's good. It's still a bit, I don't know, it feels cramped a little bit because they didn't really they gave you one immersive scene and then a couple small individual cap scenes, which I think you could have shot in the movie a lot. Like that was not 100% location driven, I don't think.
I don't know. You know, I was watching that. It kind of looked like, you know, a futuristic, like Aladdin, almost like Agrabah from that Disney Aladdin. I enjoyed, you know, the way they laid that all out. Obviously, you know, there's probably some inaccuracies with what they got in the comics, but, you know, I thought it was really good overall.
I actually liked it because it kind of had that look from Up where it's literally the people of Iron City look like they're taking the garbage from Zalem and basically just building their city from that. And it actually looks like a very like well done, somewhat decent place to go visit. So like it's kind of that whole when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade out of this scenario. And they took Zalem's garbage and made themselves a nice looking city.
Yep.
Yeah, Iron City is supposed to be Kansas City, Missouri, which is why the bar is named Kansas.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so that's why it has that connection, which is why it has a very sort of like a Western feel to it versus an Eastern feel to it, even though it is from a manga.
Yep. There was only so many cities left, right? Like Colorado had a city, Kansas had a city. That's what the manga, because I've been trying to get through the manga, which is tough, by the way, because I'm not as huge a manga fan as other folks.
Well, according to the movie, this is the last one.
Yep. Who would imagine, though, Kansas City is where you're going to go to take refuge because there's nowhere else safe in the world.
Well, all the other floating cities crashed. So the Martians destroyed all the other cities. This is the only one they couldn't get through. The Martians felt that Kansas City was not worth attacking as strongly as the other cities.
Well, when we say Martians, we've got to remember these were human beings. It's the United Martian Federation. So it was humans that colonized Mars and surrounding planets. So there were humans that were just better. And then the military decimated Mars and everything else around it.
I mean, to be fair, though, technically Superman is from Kansas. So if anything, the Martians probably just realized, oh, okay, never mind. Let's leave that city be. They've got Superman. We're good. Yep, totally.
He just brought a whole new point to the table. I didn't even think about that.
Well, no, Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas City, Kansas.
Apparently, Metropolis is over in Illinois.
Huh.
I didn't know that. We went to Illinois. We found Metropolis, Illinois, and they say that's home where Superman lives, apparently. So, didn't know if you guys knew that.
I did not know that.
Fergel, you kind of brought up about sort of the Martians. So, there's actually on the DVD, it has a 10-minute video explaining the history of the war and the Martians attacking each other and sort of how that all started. And Mars was a tenocracy. You know, they're all based around technology, which is why their cyborgs are so much more powerful. But they attacked the Earth with a virus, which wiped out millions upon millions of people. And then the Earth attacked Mars with just a bunch of bombs and wiped them out.
Yep. And then I guess the bad guy behind all of it is Nova, and the Berserkers were their elite cyborg warriors that were masters of this incredibly secretive art that isn't practiced. And she is literally the last living practitioner of Panther Kunst, which is this absolute cyborg-based martial art that is designed to fight in zero gravity. Hey, I picked all that up from the comic there.
I think it means tank fighting. For the people who are listening that have not seen this movie, what would you guys say the tone of this movie was?
It had fun with itself. I think it had a lot of fun. I think the movie gave you, you guys have said it a lot today. It just gave a good story, right? I think, that's probably what made the movie tonally fit from start to finish. Even if you think the motorball was thrown in there, it just gave it a good story. And so it all fit in that story, and it led to a conclusion that was pretty well captured through.
So obviously, I know I suggested this, and this is because, one, I love it. It's literally, I consider it the first ever anime adaptation to live action, where you're taking a story, it's fun, it's something that's actually, anyone can go to a movie and watch it, and it's not like you're just taking some source material and just like doing completely like a curve 180 of what the actual story was trying to tell. Like, I felt like they took this, they did it well. I gotta say, not too campy, not too serious. Like, they knew how to balance it out, and it was a fun watch. I'm really sad that they didn't get a sequel going on this sooner. Obviously, COVID.
But no, the movie remake should be good. I mean, it really, again, I've been looking at what they're doing with things like Ares Tron and trying to come out with these stories. I've been reading a little bit further deeper because these remakes have been years in the making. So I think the Alita remake, we're going to get everything we would have wanted. So if you're a fan of the first one, which I know I am, I think you'll get a good second movie.
I'll save my views about sequels when we get to that section of the show. But for the tone of this movie, it really is a classic caste system struggle. You got the city in the ground, poor, impoverished city, feeding off the junk of the one above. And then we need a person who can stand up to climb the literal cables of the city to get to the top and take down the city, take down the hierarchy. It's a fun movie. It's a classic story. So that's really sort of main sort of tone that it's set, is that no matter how happy you are down here, the guys up top are still going to mess with you. Though she was happy at points. She had the chocolate, right? She had the oranges, her favorite foods. She was playing motorball in the streets, but then because people up top noticed her, it got harder and harder on her life until the point where she realizes, I need to go destroy them because it's making life here even harder, even though this area is feeding off the junk of the people above. It's a good story. Pacing-wise, guys, how'd you feel this thing move? This movie is about 2 hours long. So did it feel that way? Did it feel longer than that, shorter than that?
I did feel like this was a very long movie. I kind of did it in two parts. So like I watched a little bit of it one night and then I watched a little bit more of it the next day. It just did feel a little too long. I probably would have said maybe make this about like a hour and 40, maybe hour 45 long movie. Probably would have been a little bit more easier to digest. I understand you wanted to cram in as much of the story as possible to get people hooked into it. I just think maybe a little less would have done a lot better for this movie success-wise. Yeah, it just felt kind of discombobulated and all over the place, where it just kind of starts off as like this kind of slow teen drama, and then it just kind of escalates into like this crazy motorball sports and then hunter warrior brawls, and it's just kind of like, whoa, like this got a little out of hand quickly.
You see, here's where I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's long enough. I think it needed 2.5 hours because the runtime's 122 minutes. I think it needed to be longer. I think, like we talked about earlier with the motorball, I think, couple of competitions where, you saw her like, winning, getting higher up in the, and then, getting into the championships and all that. I think either that or, I hate to say it, Netflix, this would have been a perfect opportunity for you to come and grab this and, do right by it, because let's face it, they got a decent budget where they could have made something like this work. So
I don't know. I fast forwarded a little bit today because, again, I watched this afternoon while I was working. So I wanted to see it, look at it, kind of just make sure I was fresh on it, because I've seen this movie 1,000 times. I think there were a couple parts to fast forward, but to your point, right? Like two things: either make the story a little bit longer, or take one or two scenes out so that you can flesh them out, or give us a bit of a better cliffhanger at the end so that it's a better hook for that second movie. She is motorball champion, but I'd love to have seen her be crowned or be ready to go, like the next step, because and then they don't really explain like how her armor is now completely changed to be more militaristic and bigger, and like I'd like to see a little bit more in between that part. So that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think this movie suffers from, like I mentioned before, it's two stories jammed into one. So I think you either have to go one of two directions. One, eliminate the motorball or have it happen in the background just so we know the sport exists. Because I think the reason he wanted to add it was because it's really cool. It's the NASCAR of the future, right? That's how I viewed it. So he wanted to make sure it was included because it was really cool. And he designed the track to be more NASCAR where the cameras are and all that sort of stuff. But then spend more time on the villain story and her story of her origin, essentially, right? Like who she is. And if you spend more time on that, we'll buy more into her and what's happening, and to keep motorball in the background, or make it even longer, as you were saying, make it longer so you can spend time in both stories and really flesh both those stories out so they don't feel so crammed together. But given that it's in the Western world a relatively unknown IP, yes, some people know it. Like I said, I watched the anime, but it wasn't a big one. It may have struggled even with a bigger budget because the movie did not break even in the United States. It broke even worldwide, made like $400 million. Barely broke even because $170 million budget to make this thing, because it's all Cameron's, technology from Avatar.
And it only made like $85 million in the US and Canada. So like, yeah, that's a colossal underachievement here in the United States for a movie like that.
Exactly. So I think that's why if he had gone with smaller, which would help build the base a little better. But then I think they were stuck between a rock and a hard place because Cameron loved this so much. He wanted this to exist, and he may realize this was his only shot at making it exist. My thing is either go longer so you can spend more time fleshing it out, or chop off the motor sport, whatever it's called, motorball, and spend more time fleshing out that origin storyline to it,
or make it episodic,
or maybe like a TV show. But I remember in 2019 that kind of TV show wasn't as big as it is now. Like now you could do that. I think now, like with Fallout coming out and these other sort of 10 episode arcs, you could do it.
And more people wanting to stay home and watch on their streaming stuff on Netflix and Amazon and Hulu. Like, you have more of the opportunity to hook people in as long as you keep it condensed to at least, if you do it as an episodic TV miniseries of maybe like 45 minutes to, like 50 minutes an episode, just so people will be more inclined to be more hooked to watch it.
Well, believe it or not, Netflix is really stringing towards the full hour-long episodes now. So you really could get, this done in like 6 episodes, between the two stories.
6 episodes, an hour each episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Apple can make Foundation work, they can make this work. So effect-wise, now this movie to say it is high in CGI is an understatement.
Yes.
How did you guys feel about the effects looking back on it? It's about 5 years old. So how do you guys feel about the effects? Have they aged well?
They've aged really well, actually. I think that, again, my scene with Hugo, when I talk about him as the scrapper, it wasn't the fact that it was an old robot that kind of bothered me about that one scene and why that jumps into my mind. It was the fact that the head to the body was not well put together. It was not well thought out. Like, there was not enough effort done to the rendering to make it feel like that head was on that body. Like, it wasn't just him in a green suit. Whereas like Alita, like I lost track of who was even under that body there for a second. So I think the CG held up phenomenal. I think it's, anything post that 1819 era, because I mean, this is Marvel time frame. So this is, it's just, at this point, we're eons ahead. AI just made it better in some regards.
Yeah, no, like I stated earlier, the special effects in this movie are really, really amazing looking. When, like you're saying, like when you see a Zabian, where like literally he's just a cybernetic body with the RoboCop face kind of implanted on the machine, and it looks so flawless and looks so realistic. And then you look at Jackie Earle Haley's character of Drubisca, thank you, where it's just this big gigantic robot, but it's like the face looks so realistic, and it's just almost like, holy crap, like you're literally looking at an actual robot. It's like breathtaking. And like I stated earlier, like for the fact that this was made in 2019 and you're looking at stuff nowadays with special effects and CGI, and it looks just so awful. Like, it's amazing how CGI has kind of regressed as time moves forward.
Yeah, but the thing is, I hate to say it, and this is probably maybe an unpopular opinion, is the movie industry dying where, not a lot of, CGI is being put in because, let's face it, people aren't making their profits back on movies nowadays. Everything's kind of gone to streaming.
I think it's really more just the colossal rush to get it out into theaters to try and make as much money back as as humanly possible, because budgets have become so bloated and become so like gargantuan that they need to get this out as quickly as humanly possible to try and recoup whatever money they can from making this movie. Because nowadays movies are about like $250 million, $500 million to pretty much make. Nowadays, movies need to make like $1 billion just to at least break even on what they spent to make this movie.
For me, I would preface this with, I am a practical effects kind of guy. I love practical effects. I love how they look. They feel more real. That being said, this movie was a technological marvel to me. If you watch the DVD, you can actually, on certain scenes, stop it, and it'll show you the scene with just the get-ups that they have on while they're filming this thing. They called it performance capture versus motion capture, the amount of dots they have on their face. There's more money spent on the graphics of Alita's eyes than was on Gollum himself from Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
It's insane the amount of money they spent on this and the technology they spent on this, because they used basically all of Avatar's technology to make this thing happen, which allowed them to sort of tap into camera and sort of resources for it. That being said, it is a little clean. I like my movies a little dirtier than that, but there are some scenes where they slow it down just at the right spot where it feels like it's lifted right off a page of a comic book. Like there's a scene where like she's jumping and the guy's claw-like hand is spinning around her, and then she gets chopped to little bits after that. That scene, like for that half second, you're like, that is right off a comic book page.
The Battle of Grishka. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. I thought that was a great, the whole striking thing when it went and it just cut her. And then she still managed to push her hand up and like, F you. That was a little dirty. She put it right through. She gave him the wet and gooey.
My fun fact, when we saw that scene where she jammed her arm into his eye, not realizing that this was a PG-13 rated movie, I was basically just like, oh, we got our one F-bomb for our PG-13 rated movie right there, and it was so worth it.
And the reason it was able to be PG-13 is not just because of the one F-bomb, but because of the fact that there's no blood. This movie has no blood in it. For all the damage and destruction this thing has, I mean, there's a guy that loses his head in the motorball scene.
Blue liquid. It's like blue liquid.
There is one scene with some blood in it, believe it or not.
The dog, yeah.
I forgot the name of the character.
Because remember, she puts it on her eyes, I could not stand by in the presence of evil. And that's when she's like, bottles, music starts going on. It's like back in the Detroit bar in the 80s.
Although, a quick question for you guys. Were you guys expecting Ajax to be in here?
Ajax. Remind me who...
Deadpool?
Oh, Ed Skrein. Yeah, they underutilized his fighting ability, too. He's supposed to be Zapan, the guy with the whole Damascus blade. Yeah. They underutilized that dude altogether, man.
It's funny because they do so much CGI in these characters. I did not know who half the actors were until after the fact, going back and looking at it. Like Rorschach's a giant robot.
I didn't realize Jackie Earle Haley was basically the pivotal villain of the entire movie until I IMDb'd who was playing the villain, and I'm like, oh, that's Jackie Earle Haley. Okay.
That's Shark. That's Freddy Krueger, Jackie Earle Haley. That's the small little guy with the very bright orange red hair. He's playing that Grishka guy. That was awesome.
Yeah, so I'm putting the notes together for the show, and I typed that in there. I'm like, that's got to be wrong.
When we got introduced to Nova, do any of you know who the actor Peter Stormare is?
I don't think so.
So he's in a lot of Michael Bay movies. If you've ever seen Armageddon, he's the Russian astronaut that kind of joins up with the American astronaut.
The Russian astronaut. I'm going to be big Russian hero. I see. Yeah.
I told you, touch nothing, but you bunch of cowboys. Pretty much thought for the entirety of the scenes that I saw him, I thought it was that actor right there until he takes off the glasses and they're just like, oh, that's Edward Norton. Like, I was just kind of pleasantly surprised by that.
So what do you guys love about this movie? What did you hate? What did you think they could have done better?
I loved that they teased out stuff. I loved the flashback scenes. I loved they teased it out. I think we covered everything that they could have done better. I think there was just, some of the characters, they gave us such a strong protagonist that an antagonist needed to be equally as strong. That was my big 3-cent word for the day.
So overall, love the movie. I think they took too much time to try to get this sequel going, to be honest with you. But I get why with some things. But, even a year or year and a half ago, they could have tried to get this movie going quicker because it was a really good movie, in my opinion.
I think this was a very fun, enjoyable, entertaining movie. I do think this is probably a good introduction for people who haven't really watched any haven't read any manga or haven't watched any anime. Maybe this can be like a good little starting off point to watch and be like, oh, I actually enjoy this kind of genre. I should look up more stuff for this. But yeah, this is definitely a very fun, like, you'll have a very good time. You're not going to regret watching this movie. Yeah, definitely give this a watch if you have not seen this yet.
I watched this with my kids who had never seen it before. And just what you just said there, it's a great intro to the manga genre because it is very anime. There are a lot of parts of it that my daughter, who loves watching anime, reads a ton of manga, looked at it and said, like, has never read Battle Angel Alita, but she saw this, was like, that's straight out of anime, right? They showed Ed Norton for a second on a screen. She goes, he's the bad guy, just because of his glasses being small and round.
So another thing, too, that I kind of noticed, too, it kind of did have like that YA young adult Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent kind of feel to it, where it was kind of like trying to target to like young teenagers and maybe like adults in their like early 20s kind of audience.
I can tell you right now, when I was in high school and college, like all this Hunger Games styled stuff, you know, I'm sure they got some inspiration off of it. So Hunger Games and other dystopian stories.
Yeah, just like when I was watching it, I got a feel of like, this feels like kind of like Hunger Games or Divergent or the Maze Runner.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of touched on it a second ago, but should people go out and seek this movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Of course. For no other reason except to see the bad guy with the little squinty eyes. Because now you get to know that it's manga. Then if you knew nothing else, you'd know it's manga.
Definitely go see this. Grab some pizza and beer and just hang out with your buddies and just watch this.
Yeah, it's just a fun watch. Definitely, if you have not seen this movie, go see this movie. Of course, I don't know why you're at this point in the podcast if you haven't seen the movie yet. But you personally, would you go rewatch this movie anytime soon?
Well, the beautiful part, it comes on like every 3 weeks. Like TBS rolls that bad boy in and the Sci-Fi Network brings it right into that rotation. So I don't even have to wait. It'll just come to me.
So technically, I actually saw this movie at Walmart on Blu-ray for $13, and I was tempted to buy it. Now, after seeing this movie, I should just go back to Walmart and spend the $13 to physically own the movie and have it forever. Moral of the story, people listening to this, buy physical copy movies.
Well, you can buy a physical copy out in Redbox still for $4, buddy.
Like I said, I saw it at Walmart, so it's like, definitely buy it.
My friend, I just got you beat. You can go right to Amazon right now and buy that movie for $8.25. Boom. I just saved you $3. That's real world savings. Let's pull that together.
But you don't get all the special features like you would on the DVD, though.
The Blu-ray is $12.60. I just saved another $1 along the way. That's got the special features. I'm bringing the magic.
I actually picked up the Blu-ray through Amazon. I actually thought I owned this movie. I collect steel books, so I thought I had this steel book. It's a beautiful piece, but I actually never pulled the trigger when I originally. So I had to go buy it off Amazon the other day because it's not on any streaming services that I could find, and it's worth it. And the DVD extras, if you like that kind of thing, are hilarious. They are good for that movie. Like I said, there are parts where you can watch the movie and actually stop the movie and switch it into without the CGI and watch the scenes without the CGI if you wanted to do that, as well as a 10-minute cooking video on how to make chocolate. So.
You are obsessed with chocolate, my man.
My kids and I watched that 3 times. I kid you not, 3 times because it was so good.
I was just going to say, so not only are you getting an entertaining sci-fi movie, but you're also getting a how-to on how to make chocolate. You get 2 things in one.
And the best part about it is he actually does not give you the recipe. He just says, like, throw in some tequila because it tastes good. Like, throw in powdered sugar till it gets the right consistency. And he has a special machine that mixes the chocolate for you, by the way. So we know a sequel is being made for this, but the question I have for you guys is, should a sequel be made, or should they restart the whole series again since it's been a few years?
I think could keep on with the sequel ideas. Maybe, if anything, just maybe re-release the first Alita Battle Angel right around when the sequel is going to get coming out, so people who haven't seen it in a while can kind of just get a refresher course and then just go in ready to watch the sequel and be prepared for whatever the sequel is going to have for them. Like, I would just stick to that. Just have the sequel come out right now as it is.
I'd say Netflix it.
Turn to a TV show?
Yeah, right. Netflix it, make it right to a TV show. You can get like 2 or 3 seasons off of it, and I can tell you right now, Netflix would make a good, subscriber because of.
They would. Can't bring it to the CW though.
No.
Sorry, guys.
Alita Battle Angel on the CW would be atrocious.
I couldn't resist. We had to bring it in there. Okay. Whew, bring it back.
I feel like if you do a CW Alita Battle Angel, I feel like Stephen Amell has to be in it for some reason. Just recycle all your CW actors.
Oh, that Rob Diggle has to be in there. Diggle has to be in there somewhere.
Oh, dude.
You can't have Alita Battle Agent of the sequel without Diggle. Mr. Diggle's he could be Vector. He could be Vector's cousin.
Dude, if you could do either Stephen Amell or the guy who played Diggle. Either one of them could play Ito.
Or get Brandon Routh. He was Blue Beetle. He was in Legends of Tomorrow.
Taking it down rabbit holes.
Oh, yeah.
Before they announced that there was a sequel for this, I've always wanted a sequel for this movie, just because they left you sort of hanging at the end with Ed Norton. And having seen the original anime for it, I know there's more to the story that I would love to see on the screen. So in closing, guys, how would you rate this movie?
2 thumbs up.
You only have 1.
Oh man, then I'm giving it the long Fergel thumb. I'm giving it the Fallout thumb. I'm gonna give it the Fallout thumb. That's what I'm giving it today. The Fallout. It's got the full Cooper Howard Fallout thumb.
I'm going to do the Mick Foley thumbs up of go see.
If I could grow more opposables, I would give it more opposables. I would give it 1,000 opposables if I could.
Yeah, I give us a thumbs up.
The moral of the story: see this movie. You'll love it.
You'll love it. I give it a thumbs up. It's a fun watch. I enjoyed this with my kids. They were engaged with it. There were no complaints about time travel like we've had for many of our recent episodes. So they all loved it. One last thing before we go. Thank you for being on the show with us today. And where can people find you?
So we run a podcast called the Dr. P.F. Jeremiah and his Infernal Roommate podcast. We like to review movies, but we do them in character. Jeremy over here plays a doctor in entertainmentology, and I play a demonic possessed druid from another world bent on dominating your planet.
And what better way to help rule the world than join a movie review podcast?
That's a 3-body problem if I've ever heard one.
I had the opportunity to be on your show as well. It was a lot of fun. Take a listen when you get a chance. And Fergel, where can people find you?
TikTok, Facebook, Gotham Knight Comics. Get your nerd on. Check it out. We're everywhere, man. We're just putting out content. We're just making stuff happen. So, and I'm going to throw a quick bust out and say, everybody go see the Deadpool Wolverine trailer that's on YouTube. Wow. Another thumbs up for that one.
If you're looking for me, you can always find me over at Off Panel Creations, where I'm always in the woodshop building some piece of nerdy furniture. I also want to thank David and Jeremy from PF Jeremiah and his Infernal Roommate podcast for joining us today. And I want to thank you, our listeners. If you have any thoughts about Alita, or you think they should not make a sequel, send us a note at movie-smash.com, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. This has been Movie Smash with Chris Roberts, Jeremy Parmentier, and Fergel Amayo. Produced by me, Chris Roberts. Executive produced by Off Panel Creations, LLC. Movie clips provided by the respective studios. You can rate and review the show at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might even find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for us? Visit us at movie-smash.com and send us a note. It too can be read on a future episode. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Movie Smash wherever you listen to your podcasts.